You are watching the Fayetteville Government Channel. Up next, full coverage of the latest City of Fayetteville ward meeting. Ward meetings are held at various times by City Council members to interact with and receive feedback from the residents of their ward.
Hi. Well, we will go ahead and begin the Ward 4 meeting. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sarah Lewis. I'm the Ward 4 Position 2 City Council Representative, and I'm Rhonda Adams, Ward 4 Position 1. And so thank you for coming. The agenda we've put together here is we'll talk a little bit about the Cleveland and Hall rezoning, and then also talk about the Hossel Avenue rezoning, then some city updates specifically related to building a residential energy code that's coming through the council, and then also the update on town and gown, which I need to get out of email. I've got mine. You have yours too. Yeah. And then a chance to have additional neighborhood topics, and then we'll close. So some of the just generally the rules of engagement, if we can try to stay on the agenda, respect the time frame, and I can help with that, and Rhonda as well, and then raise if you have a comment or question, you can indicate by raising your hand up, and then also if you can try to frame it if you have a suggestion or solution to go with a comment, that always helps keep things moving forward. Thank you for coming, and so what I'd like to do is continue to go around the room, and we'll start with Bill and have you introduce yourself.
Okay,
And you can just say your name or where you and
right. I'm Bill Mueller, and I live in the morning shadow of the stadium.
And I'll add that this is Ward 4 and Friends, so whether you're in Ward 4 or not, you're welcome at this meeting. It is open to all. So.
John Fawcett, I live on Orange Circle, Sun Avenue, below the Markham Hill, west of the state.
And we also have Jeremy Pate. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Jeremy Pate, Director of Development Services for the city.
And then all the way in the back.
Kevin Murray, works for the fire department. Brad Hart, fire sergeant also.
Thank you.
Go over here. I'm Susan Gardner, and I live on 909 North Hall. Lori Hughes, I live next door to Susan at 927 Hall Avenue.
Thank you.
Stacy Park, I live on Maple.
Good.
Deborah Boddington, Hodge Drive.
Laverne Cooper, Ward 1.
Thank you.
And Beth Presley, Friend.
Yay! That's right.
Alan Long, Waterman Woods.
Thank you. Who's going first?
Archie Schaefer, 1404 West Cleveland.
And I'm Beverly Schaefer.
Thank you. And we missed one, I believe.
Paula Johnson, Lawrence Circle.
Thank you, Paula. Thanks for coming. So the first thing I'd like to do, and we've invited Jeremy Pate to help us to address questions and so on regarding the status of some of these topics. And generally speaking, the Cleveland and Hall project has gone through Planning Commission, and I was going to ask if Jeremy would give us an update on where that stands and if any additional changes have been made since Planning Commission, and if you would come up here so that the folks on the television can see a little bit.
So the Cleveland and Hall Plan Zoning District, Project Cleveland, has made its way through the Planning Commission with a recommendation. So what happens after that in the process is, if it goes forward with a recommendation for approval, as city staff, we put a packet together for the council and submit it to the city clerk, which we've done. That was on Friday of last week, and so it takes about 2.5 weeks to actually get on the city council agenda. And once we submit that, meet that deadline, then it goes to the city council for consideration. And all PZDs are planned zoning districts. It's a zoning change, so they're rezoning the property, and all zoning decisions are made at the city council level. The Planning Commission basically just makes a recommendation to the council. So June 5th is the meeting date for that particular item, and the first time it will be considered for the first reading. If you haven't been to city council meetings or don't know plan zoning districts, they follow the same process as a rezoning in terms of how it's read. So it has to be read 3 times. They can do that all in one meeting. They can suspend the rules and do that, or they can stretch it over as many meetings as it takes, really. It's kind of up to the council to make that call. So Tuesday the 5th will be the first time that we'll be considering the first reading. see, any changes? The only thing I think that we added to the, so when we put together a packet, we put everything that's in the Planning Commission packet. So any public comment that we've received up to that point goes into that packet. Traffic studies, that's the one update that we had when, if you all were at the Planning Commission or watched the Planning Commission meeting online. They had conducted a second traffic study by a group out of Missouri, I believe. And they simply had the hard data, the numbers, to present to the Planning Commission. They didn't really have the summary report. They may have handed one out at the meeting. But we have all of that summary information now within the packet. And if you go online and the council, once the tentative agenda goes out, you'll be able to click on each one of those and find the different items. So there's a couple of different, actually there's 3 different things related to traffic, 2 of which are by Peters and Associates. They're a traffic consulting group out of Little Rock. And this other one's Small Arrow, I think is the name of their company, out of, I believe it's out of Missouri.
Springfield.
Springfield.
They did the one with Come and Go.
Okay, all right. And so they'll have their executive summary and then all the data behind that, where they took traffic counts and turning movements and did their projections. Really not a lot of surprises. They both, the second one sort of corroborated the first study. The numbers are a little bit different because, like as with any traffic study, we have to make some assumptions, obviously, about which way traffic could occur, and so they made generally close assumptions, but there are a few differences, and you'll note that in the numbers. The second group definitely made more recommendations and had more to talk about pedestrian improvements. They recommended wider crosswalks at the Hall and Cleveland intersection, up to 10 feet wide, I believe. And so those are all things that were incorporated into the recommendations as it went forward to the council.
Okay.
I think that's about it. We did have engineering evaluate all of them, so we would have a comprehensive review. There's a citizen also submitted one. Dr. Matlock submitted a traffic study out of first college students specifically out of Virginia that looked at analysis of 4 different universities. There's also one out of Minnesota and one out of Auburn that are included in that packet. So some assumptions were made out of those, looking at those particular projects. So that's about it.
What questions do you have regarding this? Yeah, thank you. So, just to be clear, the development, the proposal that went to Planning Commission is not changing as it comes to the council. So what they're proposing is the same as what you saw here, and I guess it was 3 weeks ago. Yeah, and thank you for coming on a not regular Ward 4 night because of the holiday on a week from today. So, but what questions or comments do you have at this point and related to the Cleveland and Hall project? And again, if you could just indicate by kind of waving your hand that, John.
One question. When Seth Mims did present, it was for 122 units, I think that was the latest change. However, the sign still posted says 222 units. And if one to assume that even though he's doing 121 units now, that's going to leave room for him to add another 100 down the road?
No, the signs posted up at the very beginning of the project just to let everyone know it's going to be on an agenda. Mm-hmm. Whatever is in the actual ordinance that the council adopts in terms of the booklet that they pass out and what's written in the ordinance is what gets adopted. And that's the latest number is 122, which is what the Planning Commission recommends.
So there's no chance that 100 more units could be added?
That's correct. They would have to come back and do this whole process over again if they wanted to start that.
So there is a chance they can still do it?
Anyone can always request a change to zoning at any point in time.
Okay.
And I saw him. Yes.
Yes. Hi, I'm Susan Gardner, and I had a question about I do know at the last meeting they did say 122 units, but my understanding was that they changed the majority of them to 4-bedroom. So we're still talking about the same number of occupants, cars. Is that correct?
There are 450 bedrooms total. Is what the proposal is for in those 122 units.
Right. So that's not really changed. The number of units has changed, but not the number of
The number of bedrooms changed from 222, but it hasn't changed since the Planning Commission voted on it. So it's still 122 and 450. So that's definitely still the same.
But yeah, so what I'm saying is they changed the number of units, but the number of people that are going to be served by this development are still 400 and something people, correct?
Well,
I think it's
Beds, is that what you're talking about?
correct. So every time they changed, from my understanding, every time they changed the number, they dropped the number of units. There wasn't an exact corollary because sometimes they made more bedrooms. So you're exactly right. It's not a direct proportional change. But I think they started out closer to 600 bedrooms, if I remember right, when they had 222 units. So obviously it's not a proportional change from number of bedrooms to number of units, but they both kind of shifted downward as it got to the level that they wanted to present to the Planning Commission.
And I have a second question related to the traffic study. The first traffic study, I believe, was done the Friday before spring break. It was only out for 24 hours, even though they reported it was a 3-day study. This second study, do you know when it was done? Because since the last planning meeting, I've not seen any sort of calendar or anyone, and we drive that way 2 or 3 times a day.
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but it's all in that executive summary. It'll tell you.
The other one did not have a date on it
Okay.
of when the study was done. And my other question is, because since the last planning meeting, classes are out again. So as far as an accurate study,
Yeah, the small arrow one was done before. We confirmed at the last Planning Commission meeting, we were able to confirm that they were all done when classes were in session.
and was it a 1-day study or a 3-day
I
study?
would have to look at that study.
Can you check that?
I can for sure check it out.
Thank you.
Well, those are good questions. So things that are important to you that we could ask during the council meeting, that's something that this helps, check on that. I did. What other questions or comments? I have one.
I have a question about what Jeremy just indicated, that there was a packet that's already been prepared and the city clerk has that. Is that what you said?
So what happens in the process, sorry, I'm writing this note down so I remember. What happens in that process is that there's a packet that's submitted and then it's routed. And so when I submit it, it goes, I think, next to the city attorney, and then it next goes to our finance director, then it goes to our chief of staff, and then the mayor, basically to get on the agenda. The tentative agenda will be put together, I think, by next, when do they usually come out?
Well, it's Thursday, because
Thursday or Friday?
yeah, usually the email will come out Friday that I forward to Ward 4. And so I know that it's done by then.
But if you want to copy
So
the
it's already
packet.
on the agenda and the packet hasn't even been gone through the whole process yet? That's what I'm saying. You said it usually takes X amount of time to get process to be put on the agenda.
Right.
So I'm just wondering why it's already on the agenda for the 5th, or we've already gone through that process, you're saying. And is it available then, the packet available now?
I can send it to you, the packet.
Oh, I'll be happy to get it online, or however, if that's
Just
something.
means it's in the queue to get on that agenda.
Right.
The agenda hasn't been put together yet.
We don't meet, this is the 4th and the 5th of a 5 Tuesday month, and so we don't have agenda session this week. So we'll get the packet on Thursday or Friday for next Tuesday night's agenda session, which is the 5th Tuesday,
Okay.
which is a little bit, we do that once a quarter. We have 5 Tuesdays, and that's what.
I mean, I would hate
I
to
have
get it now and have it
packet.
changed, that packet
Yeah.
changed, between now and then, if it's tweaked here or there or somewhere along the process in the next
Sure.
10 days or a week at least.
And I've got what we can submit, what we submitted, and I'm happy to send that.
Is that going to be much different than what the packet was that was given to
There's
the
a-
planning commission?
It's not a lot, but we do include what the ordinance says, and then there's
Okay.
a cover memo that we just to the council, and so it'd be helpful, I think, to have kind of that most up-to-date packet.
Matlock studies weren't in the other one, right? There'll be
The
there are
last
additions
summary,
to
that's
this
correct.
one. Yeah,
Right.
so
That
those
last
that
traffic
he,
study.
when we talked about the last word for meeting, I asked him if he had any of those traffic articles research, and he sent some, and that was good to get. So
that's
that'll
all
be in
included
the
now.
new packet, yeah.
But if you want, if there's an email
Yeah.
list, I can send that to you. It's just in a PDF.
I'll tell you, it's really a challenge getting it around because the file's so big and
Yeah.
a lot of people can't, their server won't.
I could.
I've been able to download it, but I mean, to mail it around,
Yeah.
I was able to download it directly to my laptop, but getting it by email, the file's pretty big, so.
What I can do, I can also break it up into smaller bites, so you
Well,
can just look at just individual pieces. That's what
Yeah.
we did for the council
That's what we
because
did.
it was such a large
Yeah.
packet, and
That's what I
so
was thinking.
that's what we generally do with PZDs. They get
Good.
rather cumbersome, and we have an FTP site basically on our website where you
Right.
go to and just look at certain documents. and
So
we can
the
send that
index
address out.
on that would be where you would find, even though it's the city clerk and not planning, we're actually.
And normally we don't put them up there, but if enough people are interested, I certainly can.
Oh, okay.
And just for anybody, I think most of us in this room are on the Ward 4 list. We don't both send it out. Sarah sends it. She
Right.
was sending it before I was on, but anybody who's listening and is not on Ward 4 could email either one of us and we can forward it on out.
Yeah.
So
Right, and so if you want it before that email comes out, Jeremy can help get that to you. But if you wait until then you'll open up this agenda and there'll be links to the pack, because we'll have to see all that as well. So, and like you said, they have to break it up on these kinds of large files. But Jeremy, we can,
Yes, I'll
I can,
put that in.
we can send that out. Yes, Archie.
I have a procedural question that I guess is more directed at you all than Jeremy, but what does it take to suspend the rules to go to the second reading, third reading, all at the same meeting?
It takes.
2/3 vote?
Yeah, 5. You have to have at least 5 votes. Or,
No.
excuse me, 6 votes.
you need six
Six
of
votes.
the 8, and the mayor can vote or not vote.
Yeah.
Right. So it takes 6 votes
I
to
will
suspend the rules
ask-
and move to a second reading.
Right.
I will ask if, and I assume you will too, that we hear this first read full.
Yeah, so right, a
Well,
council member can just make the recommendation, or I propose we suspend the rules and go to the second reading, and then you have to vote on that and have to have 6. And then, but I totally agree that I think this should go all 3 readings. We can't guarantee that other council members won't propose to move that forward, so, but I know that I will advocate also for having that go all 3 readings, but that's what it is. And then, but having you there speaking up will really help that.
Sure.
I have one more question. I agree with Beverly. The last file was 98 pages. Trying to download that was just, and the server would not, it was down several times when I tried to get the agenda and some different things. But one of the things I did want to ask is there were some letters in the previous packet from neighbor folks, and the 2 previous, one at the subdivision committee meeting and the planning committee, Mr. Mims made a statement that he would be receiving several letters of support of this project. And I was just wondering if any of those were included in the new packet.
I think that
There are a couple in
there
there
are
that I
a
know
couple in
of.
there from the surrounding house, so the owners of the houses. That's where I think there was one.
Hall.
Yeah.
I read one.
And maybe that was the one that I've seen, is the one, the owners that are north of it, I believe. I think was the one.
And that's sometimes, just so you all know, that's sometimes information that's added after planning submits the packet. Once it's sort of out of our hands, it's in the clerk's hands, we tell everyone to submit everything to the city clerk's office so that we're not missing something. And so if you have a letter to submit at this point in time and want to get it included in the final agenda packet, send it to Saunders Smith in the city clerk's office, and she'll make sure that's in the final agenda packet.
To be clear, I haven't seen a letter, but that's where I haven't seen a letter. But he indicated that's where the support was
Because
coming from.
that was mentioned at the last meeting, is that
Okay.
he would be receiving one from the
We can keep
letter
an
at school.
eye open for that.
And I'm I'm the nearest neighbor that is not selling to him. And he had evidently spoken for me in the past, and I'm definitely adamantly against, I have no problem with the apartments that are there, and I have no problem with the number of apartments there, but I think this is a little bit large for our street.
Okay.
And just as, I know Archie was talking about a point of order, it's according to which of the 2 houses that you're talking about, if they're included in the project or not. There are 2 owned by the Baxters. We were not notified as an adjacent property owner until I brought it to the Planning Commission's attention. Then the letter that I did receive was for the wrong date of the meeting, and I brought it to their attention again, and I've never received any other notification. But we actually own the property that is behind Fayetteville all the way to Weddington. We own 7 acres back there. And so when we first saw the signs go up, we went down to look at the plans and saw that and realized that we were actually an adjacent property owner.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy?
Well, kind of related to the letters that are in the packet. There's a letter in the packet that went to City or Planning Commission that is from the police captain that states in his letter that since there has been support from the school, from Leverett for the project, and our PTO president, who is not here tonight, she can make it, spoke to the principal about that, who adamantly claims she remains neutral in her opinion about the project, that was taken out of context. She had some email dialogue regarding crosswalks, and somehow it made it into the letter from the police captain stating that the project had her support. So I'd just like to say that.
Okay.
I don't think that she will produce a letter saying I'll remain neutral. But just that statement was taken out of context,
Yeah.
and now it's part of the file that would lead you to believe that the school supports the project.
Yeah, my understanding was just, and I didn't take it that she supported the project. I took it that she liked the idea of a better crosswalk, no matter what goes in there. So, I mean, just I can only speak from my perspective on that, but I didn't take it from whatever context, but I did not interpret it that way. But I can understand how someone might.
Okay.
Laura.
And I would just second where Stacey was coming from. I actually spoke with her directly, spoke with the principal, and she shared some of those same things. And her comment was the reason that she's remaining neutral is that her primary concern is the children's safety.
Sure.
And so she felt that the neighborhood would be better suited to, people who live in the neighborhood would be better suited to speak to the issues as they would affect, you know, those of us living there, and that the crosswalk was the primary thing. And what she reiterated to me was sort of the highlight history of all of the problems that they're already having and have had with children potentially getting hit, why they've canceled some of the guard services and stuff that the kids used to do, and those sorts of pieces. And her hope was that there is already a need for traffic calming and for additional pedestrian safety, and that the way she sort of expressed it to me was if this has to go forward, that the idea would be, it would be nice if this was a motivating factor for those things to be put in place. I asked her very directly whether or not the school would be coming out pro or con, or be offering up any sort of, you know, of course I'm happy to send her the other direction if she wants to write a letter in the other direction, but she said no, that they would not be offering support or any sort of negative comment, that it was, they felt that the neighborhood had it under control and Mr. Moons had it under control from the other direction.
That's Aubrey?
Well, one thing, during the time the sale of our property was up for development, before it was approved, people in town told me, didn't even live in the neighborhood, they got robocalls asking them to call the planning department or some other city officials and urge them to support that project, to say we need that project in that area. And they were, the ones that let me know about it were offended by it. And I didn't get the call. But there's some tactics that are just really hideous going on sometimes.
No, we gotta watch out. So the things that I would like to just kind of summarize a little bit, because I want to make sure you know that so what we're hearing is, for sure it seems still too big from what you're saying for that corner. And generally what I've heard at other meetings is the design, okay? Design itself, no?
No.
Or well, it's better than it was. I think that was at our last meeting, people seemed to think it was. But there could still be some improvements in design as far as like outward facing, kind of townhome kind of brownstone improvements. And then also the traffic is certainly an issue, and I appreciate the questions about the traffic study and the date. And and also related to clarifying the school's position, and I think that's normal. They usually try to stay out of anything related to city, which is, you know, it's not in their protocol. And we will have, I know that I will, and it sounds like Rhonda will, advocate for having 3 public meetings on this. So please look at your calendars and plan to come and speak up every time about the things you care about, and speak up loud and clear, and give specific examples, like looking at the dates, and I think that that's a really good approach, and help us make an informed decision. And so, anything else?
That's good.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just in relation to just sort of your little list right there, I think there are just a few other considerations to enumerate if we're doing that, which is just the high density, the issues with noise, with litter, with the smoking situation across the corner, and with becoming a gathering place for social interaction, maybe perhaps some things that can't be done on campus that can be done on private property, that kind of thing on that corner. And certainly the safety of the kids has been addressed, but there are issues with traffic that really don't deal with safety. It's noise. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, there aren't school kids there, but all of the trucks with no mufflers or modified mufflers still come through, there with in and out of traffic. So noise generally, and the sort of radical directional change, I would say, on that corner, and taking in 4 single-family homes and converting them to multifamily with the highest density of really, I think, any residential project in the city. It will be the highest density allowed. I think, maybe wrong about that. Jeremy probably knows whether that's correct or close to correct, but that's a precedent-setting kind of thing to do. And so I noticed that Commissioner Kyle Cook and the Planning Commissioner level made the comment that wasn't really the precedent setting or going in one direction or another with the zoning. Wasn't really what they are charged with in terms of policy. That their job is narrower, and looking at what they had to consider in this application process,
but the council can.
Right, that was really beyond what he said. He would leave that to the council. So I think some of those broader discussions that don't quarrel over design or materials, or some of the things that are more targeted toward the superficial look of that, or how many actual beds there would be, the scale, the density, on the corner, the only corner in that entire block that is not RSF4 zoned. That if I would like to hear more discussion about that, and whether this is the appropriate time or forum or to take this project and make a long-term decision that will have long-term consequences for one project. Would it be better to talk about, if we're going to do some kind of campus edge zoning, an actual discussion around changing our zoning? I mean, having something exactly like that, and that would address that in a larger, broader context, rather than one project essentially establishing the precedent that could go all the way around the neighborhood. Because of the fact that you've approved one, it's very difficult then not to be arbitrary and capricious. The next one comes along, the same criteria apply, and much the same, if not exactly the same, circumstances apply. And so I think we have to be careful that if we say yes to one, because there are good things, very good things about it. I mean, we've all discussed some of the good things about this project, and there isn't,
there are still challenges, I think, and we want to make sure and bring those up. And so
So that's just.
I'd like to just say one thing about that too. I know that there are some people concerned about how I'm coming down on this. I am a fan of infill. I'm a supporter of infill, and I think it's an appropriate place for infill. I'm bothered more by the type of infill. So what I see now in that area is a lovely gathering of international students and families with children who go to school at Leverett. A nice, affordable place for people. So to me, even if it had been a PZD that asked for 3, 4, and 5 bedroom townhouses or something that were affordable, that would keep families in the neighborhood, that would not turn it into what looks to me like a single kind of living together. Students, all about the same age, with money to support lots of cars and maybe party. I don't know, they don't all party, but to me, I'm most bothered not by the infill, because I'm a supporter of infill, but I'm most bothered by taking away the affordable living for university families and international students who walk their kids to school. And I've spent some time over there lately and watched kinds of the look of the people who come in and out of what is living there now, and I like it. And I'm very concerned that we'll lose that. And if this was being brought forward in a more similar type of living, I'd be more supportive. So I want you all who are worried about me to know that I'm paying a lot of attention to this, and I'm looking carefully, and I'm listening to you carefully, and I really want us to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood while we infill the spaces close to town and close to the university, and keep affordable living in rentals. I think rentals are a good thing, and I like it, and I've said this a lot of times, that I have a small, I don't know if they're married or related or not, but they live beside me, and it's a rental. And I'm not bothered by that. But I want good behavior, affordable living, preservation of our neighborhoods, and I feel like this is changing a little bit. It would. So, Laura.
Well, no, I was just gonna say
one more comment, then we got to.
It's really nice to hear you say that, because we were just, Beth and I were just talking earlier today about who we see, especially in Holland, who we see walking up and down the street, and the folks that I see walking down and taking advantage of. I love words like walkability and infill and all this. I think it's great, and we're hearing a lot of the right jargon, but I'm not sure that the project is going to result in the jargon being right. It's not going to manifest the way we want it to. And one of the things that I think Sarah probably that comment about sort of the outside looking in versus looking into the inside is exactly that. I like that I can pick out the neighbors that walk their dogs down the street. I know a lot of the young couples and single parents that walk to Harps, not necessarily because they want to, sometimes because they have to. And those folks that are living there that take their kids to Leverett. Right now, you can really tell that based on the number of folks that have cleared out versus who's left, right? Yeah, this is the time to get to know the folks that live at those apartments. That's probably my biggest concern, is that sort of when it looks in on itself like that, that to me excludes the neighborhood and makes that its own neighborhood, right? It's its own thing rather than being inclusive the way we sort of all are. I love walking across the street back and forth to Joy Williams' house. I want those folks to get to know us. I want to get to know them. I guess the second thing I would say is, even with that said, I want something different there. I want it to be green and pretty. I want to drive around that corner, walk that corner with Gabby and Otis, dogs, for those of you who don't know, and be excited that something attractive is there that really welcomes people into our neighborhood. That's the corner that kicks off our hood, right? Probably my biggest concern is the density, that the parking garage size and the height has not changed, even though the number of units has gone down, the number of beds has stayed very high. But the biggest piece of that for me, and I continue to use this verb even though it's probably inappropriate, it's the taking of the single family properties. I can understand the first one, which is the Berry's first property, because the Biari property is such a funky shape. It's that sort of thick bottomed L. You really need that first Berry property to give you a nice rectangle and to do something I think lovely on the property. It's that this is taking 4 single family homes and making them into multifamily. That to me is where the precedent is being set. That to me is where it's the big change. Certainly we're not going to do anything to undo the 40. I think having rental property in the neighborhood, A, it's going to happen whether we like it or not. B, it's already there. making it something nicer than the Red Roof Inn would be fabulous. But it's that beginning downgrade and beginning destruction of what the neighborhood really is, and that's a single-family home neighborhood. The history behind my house, I think, was really important to me. Buying it, it's Coach Rose's old house, who used to coach the basketball team in the 50s. And while I want students, I want our law students actually, like, to live on our street. I think that'd be great. I don't want to discourage that. I really want that diversity. I spoke with a math professor who lives on Hall. He's a renter. He's a great guy. He's a grad student and scary smart. And he and his wife have said that they are not for this project for exactly that. They picked to rent on our street because it was walkable to the university, because it was walkable to Harps, and because it was a diverse place to live. And they didn't feel like living down the street from that many students, where it was designed specifically for students, was really going to be the right place to begin their family.
Well, keep talking to us and keep emailing us and keep calling us, and I appreciate very much. Stacey, you have something to say before we
I just have two quick questions.
Okay, then that's it.
There are improvements suggested on the downslope of Garland that were kind of added at the last minute or toward the end. Yeah, Cleveland, I'm sorry. Thank you. A climbing lane and a bike lane and
on-street parking. And on-street
Right,
parking.
that's at the top.
Three-way stop.
The top
But you're
of the
talking down closer to Stacey's.
Right. When I'm on Cleveland and I've walked Cleveland and I drive Cleveland, I hardly ever see cyclists, but I always see people walking, and that sidewalk is very scary. And would there be a way to perhaps, instead of having a dedicated climbing lane that's separated by its own curb for cyclists, is there a way that we can make that sidewalk better, keep the street width the same, but make a landscape strip or something so that you feel some separation from those cars as they're flying down the hill? Is it too late to make a suggestion like that in the process?
No, I mean, that's something that's the thing on, well, even in a PZD, right? I don't know that you can, that's not on their property, but we can be requested also in that way. But also, it can be something that we look at the overlay outside of this project, which is something I think definitely should happen. And that's a street committee thing that we can certainly push for. I agree. I walk that all the time.
And my second question is, I only was able to hear parts of the Planning Commission presentation, but it seemed like there was mention of security at the parking deck, that it would be gated.
I believe so.
Do we allow gated communities in Fayetteville?
Parking decks, we do.
Okay.
Most parking decks are gated, actually.
Okay.
It better be over there, they'll have lots of people.
Yeah.
I think that's what the applicant indicated.
Looking for a place to park.
You'd have to have a card to get in it.
All right, well, I want to keep us moving on our other topics, but these are very helpful questions, and thank you very much. And please, if you have additional comments or questions, email us, or I really suggest you email all of the council. And the best way to do that is to email the city clerk and ask the city clerk to forward this to the whole council. Also, then it gets in the packet. So that's a really good way to do it, is to email Sandra, and she'll forward it to us, and as a result, it's public record, and it goes into the packet. Now, if you don't want it to go in the packet, then email the council member directly. So, all right. So the next topic is,
if it's that address, that I think that Jesse Fulcher gave that to me, but that might be something good for you all to,
right up here,
because it's got a dash. I mean,
City underscores.
Yeah.
So,
It's a little cumbersome.
and that's going back to that one, because I created an easy one, and I ditched that and going back to this difficult one, so
city
that
underscore council,
it's tough.
and then at ci.fayetteville. .ar.us. Fayetteville, Arkansas, USA,
That
but
goes
no
to
A.
Clark, and she can.
The city of Fayetteville. Okay, so that's a really good, now you only have to remember one email for all of us. Okay, but just know, everybody's gonna see your email.
Yeah, that's a good
Like putting something on the front page of the paper. All right, household rezoning. So on the old business, so the Cleveland project will be new business, but on old business will be the Apostle rezoning. And that's a request to zone it RMF4, but they put in a bill of assurance that would ensure 4, but because it's bigger than, it's how many acres?
2.37.
Bigger, yeah, 3.7, that's right. And so what we heard at the meeting really mostly related to hustle and saying curve and the danger that we all know of that curve and the sidewalk, the lacking of the sidewalk and so on. So I think that generally we can say we all agree on that, and that's a total issue that should be considered as part of the discussion. But the thing that I need to hear, especially in Rhonda probably as well, is I need to know about the zoning and what your thoughts are on the zoning, and that means because there are other types of zoning, right? There's neighborhood conservation, there are other types of RSF 8, RSF 24. I mean, so we need to know also, yes, we want to hear from you about the traffic on Household, don't get me wrong, but I also need to know what your point of view is about the zoning, because really that's all we can consider. So you can propose as many kinds of ideas about, like a developer can say, we want to do all kinds of things, but really when it comes to the zoning, a regular zoning, not a PZD, just a regular RSF4, we can consider zoning and any bill of assurance that they bring to the table, which they have. They didn't have it at the Planning Commission, but they have it now in the council packet. And and that means that they are going to only do 4 single-family homes on that property. But as far as like design or anything else, there's no guarantees. The bill of assurance stays with the property. So if this developer goes, that bill of assurance will stay with that parcel until the council changes the zoning. So, any other?
No, that's
okay.
Zoning.
Yeah. So, and also we want to hear your ideas about, and what your thoughts are about how to address hustle and saying, and how ways we might think about doing that. And then, Jeremy, do you have any other?
I think you summed it up.
Okay. Thanks. What comments or questions do you have about hustle? And then again, please come out to the June 5th. It'll be on the June 5th City Council agenda. And I saw Stacey.
My question is more related to the bill of assurance, which is they've said that they're going to have the lot split 3 times for 4 lots. And under that, they're not required to go through a preliminary plat or subdivision process. So because of that, there's really no street improvements, no curb and gutter, no stormwater management requests that can be made. It won't be going back to Planning Commission. Once City Council approves the rezoning, then this is just an administrative process for them to take it through the city to get the lot splits. And with it being a dangerous curve, we're increasing the density there, but nothing's being addressed from the developer's point of view to fix the problem that we have with the curve. And in our experience with sidewalks, that's also kind of determined administratively whether sidewalks will be required or if money can be given in lieu. So I don't know, can you require that the applicant put in the sidewalks? Can you say in order for them to rezone, they have to put in sidewalks? Is that something that council can do?
We can do a condition of approval. We can, no? Okay, sorry. Not on rezonings. We can do it on the PZD. We can. Can you tell a little bit about, because that's something that came up briefly at the last council meeting, saying, yeah, just tell them about that, because I think that's really important as well.
So there's basically 2 types of subdivision process in the city. One is approved by the Planning Commission, looked at by the Planning Commission, and then one is an administrative review process. So what Stacey's talking about is a lot split. All properties in the city are eligible for 3 lot splits maximum if you're a parent tract since 1985. There's some logic behind that, but just take it my word. 1985 forward, you have parent tracts that have been assigned a parcel number, they're considered parent tracts. And so that can be split 3 times into 4 lots. To be honest, I'll know by June 5th. I'll look this up. I made a note to do it at the last meeting, but I'll have to determine if it's a parent tract and if it can be split those 3 times, first of all. If it can, then the process is exactly as Stacy indicated. It's an administrative review process that we look at. Subdivision regulations are really pretty straightforward. You have to meet the minimum lot size, lot frontage, and require the improvements for those lots. You have to have water, you have to have sewer, and you have to have access. Those are the 3 basics. Above that lot split process, we enter into the formal subdivision, which is the preliminary plat that goes full planning commission. Any improvement that you make or that you can require or exact out of a developer constitutionally has to be based on the rough proportionality of the impact they're having to that infrastructure. So in order to improve a street or require improvements to a street or a water line or a sewer line or a sidewalk or anything, you have to prove that there's an impact on that infrastructure enough to be able to require that improvement. And then that improvement has to be proportional to whatever impact that is. Rule of thumb, that's where we get the maximum of 3 lot splits, because 4 lots above that, we start to consider more improvements than your standard access and just getting water and sewer to the property. So that it's exactly as Stacy indicated. That would be the process if it's a parent tract. I think we heard loud and clear at the last meeting that sidewalks are more desired in this neighborhood as opposed to money in lieu, and so fortunately the sidewalk administrator works for me, and so I can make sure that he makes the right decision in that case, and recommends the sidewalk, and I think the applicant's fine with that either way, because like you said, he has to pay either way, he has to do something one way or the other, and if the neighborhood would rather have that, then that's a lot of times feedback we don't get. You know, we're making a decision sort of in a vacuum, but we have the benefit of the feedback now, so we can certainly do that.
Okay. I know at the meeting, the last council meeting, Brenda Boudreaux had made the comment that we should go ahead and approve this request, because if we don't, then the improvements won't be made to the street. But there won't be improvements made to the street because it won't be going back to planning commission most likely if it's a parent.
I think it's an important point. Also, it's like you said, they would only need to fit, they wouldn't have to do the whole suite, right?
Even if it were a 5 lot subdivision, it would be very difficult to do a lot of off-site improvements,
right?
just because of the traffic.
This is their property, so you would end up with there's no pieces.
We know about that, don't we, Tim? Pieces.
Is that right, Jeremy? I mean, that's what I envision. My other question, I have a question after the council I was going to ask. So it's just a rezoning, there's no design, so I couldn't tell if they're putting a private road up into it and then the houses would face this private road, or we don't even know. But I was curious if we know, are their driveways going out of the hostel, or there's no way to tell that at this point.
Right, there's no guarantee. Okay. I mean, the applicant obviously stated on the record that there would be one driveway, and then the others would be shared, and so that's what I assume, but there's no guarantee to that.
A private driveway that they would go out onto, one end and the rest.
I think we always look at traffic safety, even with a lot split when we're approving a single family dwelling, and so our intent would be to get a curb cut as far east as possible, away from the actual curb, just for sightline visibility, for safety of residents using that street, and for safety of ingress and egress to the residents.
What other questions or comments?
Question. Is this property that we're talking about on the outside of the curve?
Yes. Well, it's actually, yeah.
Okay. And any sidewalks that would be constructed would be on the outside of the curve?
Probably.
Along
their property.
South side of the street, where they already started.
On their property.
Okay.
We don't have any sidewalks on the north side.
Right.
Well, you do when you get to saying, yeah.
So the curve itself would not be developed, it would be touched anymore. So you still have a problem with the curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this doesn't go into the curve, it's just east of the curve.
And I have a comment about that.
Bill?
And my comment is this: I live on Markham, and I see a lot of traffic going by my house in the morning that I don't recognize the driver and I don't recognize the car. In the morning, it's going as if it's coming from Weddington down Sang, Halsell, Cross, and Markham. And in the afternoon, it's going the other way. Now, that narrow road, we fought long and hard, our neighborhood association fought long and hard to keep Cross from being widened to 28 feet, right? And the narrow Cross and narrow Halsell and narrow Sang and that hard curve are powerful traffic deterrents. Personally, I would not want to see any of that changed for selfish reasons.
Right, so you're saying that there are a lot of people now. Imagine if it were wider and straighter.
Yeah, exactly. See, for years, the traffic director in the city of Fayetteville had the philosophy that the function of the traffic department was to enhance the flow of traffic through the neighborhoods. And I argued with him for years. No, it is to impede the flow of traffic through the neighborhoods.
I kind of like traffic like I do water, like it to slow down and soak in.
Yes.
We got work to do. That's right. I think that's a really good point, Bill. And so, in the process, and I don't think that this would require a widening of Halsell.
Correct. Most likely. Unless it's a subdivision, and then that's something we would evaluate.
Is all of the property on Hassel rather than Sang? None of it goes, I mean, where does Hassel change to Sang? Right in the middle of the curve? And
probably.
Pretty much, yeah.
And so all of the property is,
yeah.
So none of it goes to the Sang side.
It's just, I was looking at it, just as you come in.
There's sort of two curves in that curve, and I think it's at the second sort of bend. There's kind of a curve, and it straightens fairly, and then there's another curve. Took the city engineer out there to take a look at what improvements that we might do after the council meeting. And I think it would be, I think the traffic calming is actually working pretty well, as Bill mentioned.
There's usually a car in the ditch.
A little too well.
They are going slow when they go into the ditch, usually. Yes.
And this is, to refresh me, this is part of the PZD as right now, or is it not?
Yeah.
It is, yes.
So it's the overall Pratt Place PZD?
Yeah, that's a portion it's requested to be carved out.
Okay, and this is the first part to be carved out of the PZD. Okay, and so there's my concern, and is there, for the council to be discussing pro or con zoning, is that an issue you can discuss and bring up? Because to me, that's the danger. I mean, my property neighbors the PZD, and a very nice part of the PZD for a development were that to be carved out. And so, you know, this group, this neighborhood, somewhat, at least I did, supported the Pratt Place PZD based on the mammoth size of the set aside that there is. And so to begin to chip it away and set a precedence is very dangerous. And the reason why I don't support it as a project, were it a separate piece of property that somebody owned, I wouldn't have a complaint about it. I'd assume that planning would do a good job of getting them to get in and out of that corner somehow safely. But as carving away PZD, to me, that's the real risk. Things that go said on record by developers are not, as you said, guaranteed. There's no guarantee. And we saw that a lot with Pratt Place. A lot of things that were said on record that are not part of Pratt Place. Anything with this property, I would assume I wouldn't take it unless it was in a bill of insurance. But for this, the whole issue to me is just if it rezones, it begins a cascade.
Okay. All right. And one more, yes, Andre?
I would like you to please invite everyone to attend Council of Neighborhoods on the 31st.
Okay.
So many of these issues aren't appearing there. That's another thing to talk about. And the agenda on the previous item you're talking about, particularly that will be available to the public at the council agenda session on the 29th, which is broadcast live on the internet from the city and on 218 on cable access television or 99 something on your AT&T universe. So you can watch the agenda session without coming up here. But they will talk about those things and the packet will be available that day, although it's subject to revision during the agenda session.
Sure.
But you'll know that if you watch it or attend. You can't speak. We don't normally get to speak in the agenda session unless somebody calls on.
It's just a review of that content.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So some things going on with coming up on also related to the city council meetings and also city activities. So the city staff has been working hard on a residential energy code, and I am signing on as a sponsor to it, as is the mayor, as is Matthew Petty. And so I'd like for Jeremy to give an overview of that. Sure. And I'll add to that as well, and share the dates as well if you will.
July of last year, the council passed a resolution asking staff to review our building energy codes, both our commercial and our residential. At the time, I believe we were still operating on the 2003 energy code, so we're a little ways behind. We essentially utilize whatever the state adopts. So when we adopt an IECC, International Energy Code, we are adopting the state's version of that. And the last time the state updated their energy code was actually 2004, but it was the 03 code. We're a very rural state, and so sometimes a lot of the more rural places still have problems meeting the 03 code, and that's really why I think Arkansas kind of lags behind in the updates. The energy code gets updated about every 3 years, so there's an 06 version out there, there's an 09, there's a 2012, and there's also these Energy Star versions that are on version 3 now. What the mayor did is establish a task force of area builders, architects, and energy consultants to review some of these build different energy codes and what they bring to the table in terms of energy efficiency. We very quickly kind of focused in on the residential sector first, because it's the primary building that we have in the city of Fayetteville. There are many more houses built than there are businesses and apartments, and so especially now we have no commercial growth currently. It's all residential. So we focused very quickly in on residential, and we did the task force analysis actually of we took a home that's actually constructed in Fayetteville, and a builder did models of what it would cost to take each versions of these energy codes and the additional cost. We then ran that through a model from energy consultants to see what the savings would be in terms of energy efficiency. And the task force from that came up with a recommendation of what's the happy medium. Sometimes it was more costly, the savings wasn't as great on this model, but it is on this version. So ultimately they recommended recommending that we upgrade our codes to the 2009 codes. And so in the June 5th meeting as well, this agenda is getting pretty large, by the way. I talked to the city clerk today.
You're going to want to watch it on the government channel.
Right.
And come during the topic that you're
This will be a new business item.
That's what Aubrey does.
And so the 09 version is what we're recommending that the city adopt. I have a feeling this will take multiple readings as well. It won't all be approved in the first meeting. We're leaving the commercial as it is for now. Once our new sustainability director starts in July, that will likely be a project that he takes on. I took over for John Coleman after he left in January, February. It's been now, so it's been a few months. But to kind of wrap up this project. So we have a recommendation to look at that for the residential sector.
And just there was a lot of work that went into a multi-stakeholder task force to look at this with multiple developers, I mean like big developers in residential homes in our area, and also the green infrastructure. Fayetteville Forward had a group that came off of it called the Green Economy Group, excuse me. and they've participated in it. So it's a lot of work has gone into it, and I'm supportive of it because the consumer on the end is the one who saves money, and so it saves a lot of energy over time, monthly, right away. Once you purchase that house, you're already saving that month on your energy bills, and that also I'm supportive of having a mark on the house visible, so that a buyer doesn't rely on the realtor, doesn't rely on the assessor, doesn't rely on anybody except that's there like a tag that says this house has been rated for its energy efficiency. And so I think it's a good idea for long term for affordability of homes and purchasing homes. So
Question. Does this just apply to new construction?
Yes.
Okay.
Except that there's one part you do, yeah.
So the full-blown code would apply to new construction, and something that Sarah mentioned just now that I did not. We're also recommending, in addition to the 09 code, that every new home would have to have a HERS, home energy rating score. What that does, it takes all the data that you produced from building this home and compiles it into a score, which then can be translated to a monthly utility cost. And that's really what the consumer is looking at. Compare apples to apples. This home is 1,800 square feet. This one's 2,000. This one's 1,800. I've got 3 homes I'm looking at buying. Here's the price range. Here's my energy cost. I can now compare, what my monthly bill is going to be. And so that part of it, I think, was important for us as staff to recommend, in addition to the 09 code.
Yes.
The parts related to rehabilitations, they don't change from the way the 03 code treats them. Essentially, if you're replacing a window today, my house was built in 1948. If I'm replacing my window, it has to meet the 03 code today. And if we adopt the 09 code, then it's going to have to meet the 09 code, that window. It doesn't necessarily mean all the systems in the house have to be brought up to code. It's just whatever you're doing. So whatever you're rehabbing at that point in time. So the exceptions and exemptions are very much the same as they are today.
So as far as the building process, it would be in new buildings. New building code. So the building inspectors, this would be part of what they would look at. The city is, right? John.
One question on your new construction, though, is there a chance that to make these houses totally energy efficient, you're going to make them so airtight they won't breathe?
That is a real possibility, particularly when you get up to the 2012 code. That's one of the reasons we decided not to go that far yet. Once you start meeting the 2012 code, you actually get into required mechanical ventilation, which means your house is so tight you actually have to install ventilation systems so you have enough air change within the home. And so that's something and also there's a lot of HVAC ductwork technology that we're just not, or expertise, I guess, that we're not really comfortable recommending yet. But that's a very good point, and that was one of the considerations in our recommendation.
Which brings up an important part of this that is about economics. So when you begin to have this as part of the economy, you begin to have the demand for this type of technology. So it's not that, or skills. So for example, basically there are just a couple, one particularly that's more well known than another, that does the energy ratings on homes. And what ideally this will create a market for that, and therefore jobs for these types of things, and essentially what you would call a green job. And so that's part of it's more indirect benefit of this, but that's also part of this, is kind of loosening up shaking that up a little bit so you can get some more jobs created. Yes.
Yes, I was just going to say, I think it was 2 years ago, I went to the Green Expo that was in Rogers, and they talked about a lot of the businesses that it was bringing to this area. It sounded really exciting. I did want to make one comment, though, when we were talking about watching on TV and attending the meeting.
Yeah.
We tried to do it at the Planning Commission, and it did run very late. The downstairs doors were we could not get in the building.
Okay.
And my husband had to actually come downstairs and let us in. It was about 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So, that's something that I've not run into before, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's a way to hold down public comment.
I actually heard you when you came in, and I made a note, and I talked to our building.
Well, I've never had that happen before.
Yeah, it has happened. Actually, our sliding door, electric doors have closed before, and I'm always concerned if someone disabled needs to come in.
Yeah,
That's
well,
a
we
problem
tried all of
too,
them,
because they
and we
lock
couldn't get in
almost
any
all
of
the
them.
time. So.
No, thanks for saying.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know about it.
One other question, but it's just, I had to do. The times I've been to the planning commission meeting, maybe more likely the city council meeting, sitting back there in those pews, it's so hard to hear. When it goes to the city council to discuss, it's real quiet. I mean, you all talk too quiet. It's really hard to hear with those microphones. And then like when Jeremy is saying something, his back's to everybody, and you're not speaking right into the microphone, so it's even hard to hear you. It's frustrating. And for us folks that can't hear too well, you know, I just wish that
Audio.
is an issue.
Well, you can mention that there is a system that's supposed to give people bugs or something.
Do what?
If you request it beforehand, it's
I'm not aware here.
I'm sorry, John. That's really funny.
A person can request that before the meeting, and they will provide it. I've never tried it, but I asked about it one night for somebody who was there, and nobody knew what to do then.
Yeah.
But if you can do it ahead of time, maybe it works.
But you're saying just in general, it's hard to hear, even when you're not.
Nah, the people are not really talking. I'm trying to train my ear, like that, to hear, And, and
we need to sit in the front row, John.
Yeah, well.
We can check on that.
There's an opening on the council.
That's right. Oh, no. All right. So the other thing is town and gown. Do it.
You're doing such a great job.
Oh, you can do it. It's an email, Julie McQuaid. Do you remember at the last meeting, Julie came and gave us an update. So here are the things. Received a confirmation, so pretend I'm Julie. Received a confirmation that U of A is fully committed to forming a town and gown committee and being a partner. That's like a huge deal. That's a huge deal. So we need to clap for that. I think that's very good. That's good. Thank you, University of Arkansas. Both the U of A and the city are sending staff to the International Town and Gown Association Conference, June 4th through the 8th, to learn more about forming a successful program, which is a big investment and a lot of staff and time, so really appreciate that. And then Mayor Jordan will bring a town and gown committee proposal to the council for us to discuss and learn about, after they go to the conference, bring those ideas back and form a proposal. So I think it's a progress on that.
At the conference, one of my staff members is attending that with the university member, and at one of the sessions is how not to form a town and gown committee and how to the pros and cons, because it can be done really poorly and it can be done really well, and that's something that I think the mayor was excited about, just hearing another city have a successful and another city have not so successful time doing that. So.
I'll have to take careful notes so they don't get those confused. I'm not. Okay, and then any other announcements or topics, or Jeremy, anything else on coming up? And we haven't received the agenda yet either, but that will come out, and so watch for the Ward 4. And if you're here and you're not on the Ward 4 list, or come up and let us know. All right, so any other topics or neighborhood topics, concerns, anything going on in your neighborhood you need to bring to our attention that we can help you with? One thing that I would like help on, and I'll tell Jeremy while we're here, is we mentioned Cleveland sidewalk. Can we put on a request to get the weeds cut back on the sidewalk on Cleveland? That came up at the last meeting, so we need to do that. And
the brush on the side. The sidewalk side, are you talking about the brush that's kind of
the brush grows out, and so it just needs to be pushed back. We did that a while back, and that helps. Seems like that helps. Anything else coming out of the neighborhoods? And we talk a lot about. Oh, I want to give you an update quick while I'm thinking about it. Remember, and I know Bill was here, Beth, and some of you were here. Julie came a while back and talked about looking at key occurrences going on in Ward 4, and so she's put that together. I'm gonna ask her to come, and I think you were out of town that meeting, and we did kind of what's happening in Ward 4, and she's putting those on a map for Ward 4, just like here's Bryce Davis Park, here's the Boys and Girls Club, kind of a here's what's going on and here's what to do in Ward 4. So she's gonna come and share that here.
You mean like my garbage can getting washed?
Yeah. Right. All right, so what's going on in your neighborhoods, or anything else besides the topics we've covered that is taking place? Alan. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I know there's probably other places to talk about speeding, but saying has really become an issue lately, and a lot of people in the community have talked to me about it specifically. That people from Waterman Woods, Lawrence Circle, Berry, and or have all mentioned something to me about it when I've been walking. And so I sat out the other day and just kind of watched cars go by, and there was one that had to have been going 65 miles an hour, I swear. And so I was just wondering, would it be possible to get one of those little speed boxes?
Watchdogs?
Yeah, put out
The
that
digital
shows
dog
speeds.
is what I call it.
Just, and it's more on the top of the hill, it seems like, coming down from the Hosselt area. Seems like until people get down right about to Lawrence Circle and
roughly,
and Archer, where they see us yelling at them. That's when
I think from that your street they start speed up.
We
go
have
up the rest of the hill.
Yeah.
We can ask them to use the digital. You know what I'm talking about, where they put the digital thing. That helps for a while, and we can also request just some officers sitting on there. I know that we had one not too long ago. Thank you, but definitely thank you. Anything else from neighborhoods going on? Yes.
I was just wondering about if the city's given any thought to how much traffic is going to be diverted because of the work on Garland that's getting ready to start, I guess, not too long from now. Just looking at that diverted traffic coming up Hall and Sunset Vista, we think that there's going to be a lot. They'll be coming the other direction. Obviously, they're not going to come down Garland and then turn up that way, but wanting to come from the west and possibly try to avoid, having to come that way, where it's all going to be one lane for some period of time, or for a long period of time. Let's face it.
So we'll take the next exit.
And yeah, right. Go ahead and go to the next one, and then come up the back way and Cleveland and Sang. I mean, a lot of us do think there'll be a significant increase, and if there's anything they might be able, in anticipation of that, do to calm the traffic at the very least. I mean, they've got to get there some way. So, I'm not suggesting close the street or anything, but how we can. Because we've always talked about traffic calming, and that's not going to happen here in the, not before this project gets started.
Do you know the time? Where
I believe water and sewer contractors will begin the week after Memorial Day.
Right. So it's coming. It's right out.
They're gonna.
Especially during football games.
No, it's a good point. We can. Is it Terry? Can he go with her?
It's entirely a state project.
That's the thing about, but as far as like what she's talking about.
But we certainly can submit those comments. I mean, we are a partner, and so we can certainly submit.
I mean, maybe it's just, at least we need to anticipate how we can, not traffic calming, I'm suggesting. I'm realistic. I know that's not going to happen, before this project gets started or is fully underway, but a way to make it clear to those cut-through drivers that they need to slow down. This is a neighborhood, and it's a temporary kind of thing.
Can you temporarily put stop signs for that construction period?
Yeah,
like I'm thinking of also
that
cross intersection where people come up, also turn on two wheels that just stopping the sign there. That's true. If you could, it would slow everything down.
Well,
I don't know, but it's a temporary issue. I don't know.
No, it's a great. What you're saying is, how can we prepare for the construction going on there? So certainly ask some questions and figure out who is it. Is it staff or is it I think for sure we need to communicate with the highway department, but I'm not sure if that's the highway department, if we're just looking at, do we need more, to have more frequent officers in that area during that time, or the digital dog out there?
Right.
So
Something.
kind of some preparatory kinds of things. I think it's a good point.
Question.
Yes, Phil.
Who has control over the designated detour routes? Does the city or does the state, in the case where they're working on a state highway, but they're using city streets for the detours?
The state creates that plan.
The state has the control.
For instance, Crossover Road will actually be 100% closed for a period of time. And so that's another concern that we're looking at trying, because you have to divert 100% of the traffic for a period of time without building a bridge. So that's something we're trying to work through there as well.
Yeah.
And Highway 16 is going to be new bridges and widening there as well. So we're about to see some significant state construction projects.
And 540.
Occur.
540.
They're from Martin Luther King to Wellington.
So when they do that, Jeremy, the state makes those decisions without the city. I mean, the city can obviously comment, but.
Yes, and just like Crossover, our comments were, you really have to close the whole street down? Yes. And so, I mean, we definitely will submit those comments, and, you know, maybe the street committee may be a forum for discussing how we deal with some of these issues.
How do you get something on the agenda at the street?
Usually the chair ends up setting up the agenda, but we have a meeting with him tomorrow, and I'll talk to him about that. That's what I'm writing down.
Okay, so I'm thinking that at least we can communicate the closings. Are we?
Yes, we're sending out our own. The highway department's sending out, I think, some notification, but we're sending out press releases.
Okay, so what we can do is forward press release through, and I can do that to Ward 4. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Aubrey?
Well, there is in the street that runs adjacent to the south side of the University Farm, there is some neighborhood concern still about a project that maybe Jeremy could possibly know about, the status that it's a little infill project, and it will result, as they often do now, they mindlessly raise these wetland lots with red dirt, which makes all the water run off, even uphill in many cases, or makes a dam. And there's a lot of concern. I believe the planning department may still be studying their final plan, or that is delayed from going to the.
Where is this again?
What's the street that Jeremy runs next to? The south side of the University Farm.
Which section of the farm?
D.
Well, D, yes. Okay, there's a little project coming in there, and it's going to be, it's going to affect the drainage, the old word, the nearby property.
Okay.
There's nowhere to go but down.
Yeah.
Into the ground right around there. You know, it's really flat.
But anyway, that's been a subject of concern. I've visited with people over there a couple of times. They're just amazed.
Is that a project coming? Is it coming through?
In the process.
I think there's one. There's a little cottage. Cottages
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
I think that's been approved for a
That
while.
one, yeah.
But they're building it up. And the ones they've already built on the older part of that site are lower, I think, than the new part will be. So it's.
I know. I can check with that's I think the Newell.
It's just north of
somebody else.
Is that the corner of Dean Street and Lewis you're talking about?
A little further east of that.
A little further east?
About a quarter mile.
No.
All I'm saying is just north of, just east of Sane. I wish I had brought the information. I didn't think it needed to be discussed.
And then Aubrey, you gonna announce that?
Yes,
okay.
I will. If you want to do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. On June 1.
Fayetteville Community Wildlife Habitat Project has succeeded.
So congratulations, and I hope that you'll get your yard certified if you haven't yet.
Yes, everybody, it's very inexpensive. You'll like it better when we do that. You eliminate a lot of the mowing that costs you lots of money and pollutes the air and the water, and have native plants in your yard, and more butterflies and bees and birds eating bugs and all those things. Anyway, the celebration is June the 1st from 3 to 5 p.m. at Gully Park. And Sarah, I hope you're going to be in town.
Well, this is through the Environmental So the Environmental Action Committee has been working on this, and it is, the City Council approved that they would sponsor this, and the council would support this. What it is this City of Fayetteville is now officially a community wildlife habitat through the National Wildlife Federation. So congratulations, and if you're interested in getting your yard certified, it's an educational tool. Essentially, it just gives you all these things to think about in your yard. Say, well, do I have a water supply? Do I have a variety of different trees? Do I have, and you go through, and I know some of your yards definitely would be good ones. And you, what mine was, I didn't have a water supply, so I got a little bird bath, and then I sent my thing in and got my little certificate, and when enough of those applications, I guess, come through, it qualifies Fayetteville to be a community wildlife habitat. And the Environmental Action Committee is now the organization that will maintain our certification. It's just about doing education and community outreach about this topic. And the reason is it helps to educate people about these topics, so that it helps you inform your decisions and your decision makers' decisions. And so this event is to celebrate being the first in not just Arkansas, but this region to be a community wildlife habitat. So it's a big deal. And so come out. There's going to be tours. There are going to be habitat tours all around the park, and kids activities, music. There's going to be treats. The natural Fayetteville Natural Heritage will be there, along with some other organizations. So it'll be fun, pretty day, I would imagine. And yes, I have to be out of town for work, but there will be plenty of people there to represent. And so.
And Donna and Kelly, known as Still on the Hill when they play. And when they play for kids, they're known as Toucan Jam.
Yeah.
The kids may know them if you don't. They're going to be playing. And Emily Cates, who has some very funny nature songs. And so there'll just be a lot of things going on. It's great that day. And this program goes on into the future, as you said. So if you aren't certified now and you can't get certified before then, you can still do it next year. And it really is satisfying to have more wild things.
Will this impact AEP's ability to indiscriminately destroy our trees in our neighborhood?
Why not? Why not? We can use it, but what we need to have them certify their line. Their line. And Jeremy had something.
It occurred to me on the same agenda, and no one's really here, I don't think, from that area of Ward 4, but there's another Ward 4 rezoning on the agenda as well. Former Woodstock PZD, it's right off of Weddington and Royals, 20 or 30 acres. They requested community services, I believe, across the front of their property, and then RSF4. We did not support that rezoning. We felt it was too much for that location based on our City Plan 2030. City Plan 2025 actually supported it, but we backed off of it on City Plan 2030. We felt it was too much property within that type of zone. So we actually recommended to simply go back to the original zoning designation, RA, and that is what the council, or the Planning Commission recommended as well. So that's coming before you too.
Okay, thank you. So if you're here and you're around that area, please come speak up on June 5th about that.
I don't think we had many, if any, speaking on that.
There was one time. Well, with that, okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.